ready. Well done. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for the late start. We had a few tech issues in the background here, but we are ready to get underway now. I'd like to welcome everybody to this scheduled meeting of Swanee-Wills City Council for May. Welcome people in the gallery, in the public gallery, and those of you watching on the live stream. Swanee-Wills City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pays its respects to their elders past and present. Councillor Broad, would you like to read the opening prayer?
We beseech you, Lord, that we may be granted wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose in the decisions we are called on to make for the welfare of the people of the rural city of Swan Hill.
Amen. Please be seated. We have an apology today from Councillor McPhee. Could I have somebody move for the apologies be accepted? Move Councillor Broad, seconded Councillor Englefield. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Directors and officers present today: Scott Barber, Chief Executive Officer; Michelle Granger, Director of Development and Planning; Camille Cullinan is Acting Director of Community and Cultural Services. Welcome, Camille. Leah Johnston, Director of Infrastructure; Stephen Fernando, Director of Corporate Services; Tamara Matthews, Executive Support; Sharon Lindsay, Executive Assistant; and also today, Ash Free, Finance Manager, obviously talking budget today. Welcome, Ash. And Helen Morris, Organisational Development Manager. The minutes of the scheduled council meeting held on the 21st of April 2026 and the unscheduled meeting held on Tuesday the 28th of April have been circulated. Do I have a mover for the confirmation of those minutes? Move Councillor Jennings, seconded Councillor Broad. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Disclosures of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest today, councillors? Councillor Rogers.
I do, Mr Mayor. Item 2.4, I wish to declare a pecuniary interest close association for item 2.4.
Okay, thank you. Noted, Councillor Rogers. We'll ask you to leave the room at the appropriate time. Thank you. We have no joint letters or petitions. We have no requests for public question time or open forum. So we will move to agenda item 2.1, the 2026-27 draft budget. And I'll refer to Mr Fernando and Mr Free. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What I will do is I will first go through a quick summary of the budget and then a few indicators of where we stand as an organisation in terms of our financial position. So if you look at the report, there's a table. It's quite prominent. I will just work off that. That gives a summary of the budget. We expect to raise about nearly $75 million in total income, of which about half, or 36 million, comes as general rates that we levy on properties. Our total expenditure is budgeted at $64.5 million. Now, we look at the net result, or we look at the budget in a couple of different ways. The first, if you look at that next box, the rates determination result, which is a surplus, which is really looking at the cash in and cash out position. And as you can see, it's a very small surplus. We expect to have approximately $65,000 more in our cash at the end of the year than we have now, subject to maybe some changes here and there. Then we have what is known as the operating position, which is essentially the income and expenditure statement, or if you're a private organization, that's known as the profit and loss statement. That shows a surplus of 10 million, but we have to remember that that 10 million includes grants that we get for capital purposes. Under the accounting statements, we have to account for that in the income and expenditure statement. And we generally refer to that as non-recurring capital grants. So they are given for a specific project, not to use as we wish. If you adjust the income statement for that number, we end up with a nearly a 1.5 million deficit. So I will address that situation a little bit later when I get into the income statement. Then looking at the significant expenditure items, we have three major items: employee costs, materials and services, which is what the stuff we buy and what we pay our contractors. And then the next one is what we provide for asset renewals, which is also known as depreciation. So those are the three numbers there. Then a little bit about the debt, our borrowing situation. We are not looking at borrowing any additional funds in the coming year. But in fact, we are looking at paying back about $230,000, which will end up with $700,000 of borrowings at the end of next year. The next item there is our capital works program, which is quite important for a council. We're looking at a program of about 36 million. Of that, 22 million is in renewing our existing assets. So you can see that further up, we provided 17 million as a provision for renewals, but we're actually spending 22 million on renewals, and I'll again address that, but that means we are putting a lot of effort into renewing our assets. We are also looking at spending about a little over 5 million on new assets, so new things, and another 8 million in upgrading assets. So that's a mix of renewal and new, right? So for instance, if you are repaving a road but extending that road for a few more kilometers, that would be a combination of new and renewal. And the next box shows how we are going to fund those capital expenditure. About 13 million, the biggest component comes in the form of grants. There is a note there to say that not all grants have been confirmed, so there are some provisional projects in our capital works program which may not go ahead if you are not successful in getting those grants. Contributions, small amount, then reserves, which is money that we put aside in previous years for specific purposes. We are bringing it back and doing the project now. And then out of the 36 million general rates, we are putting about nearly 12 million into capital works, so improvement. Then there's a few items there listed just to give you an idea of the CapEx and OpEx items that are key. Next, I'll take you to page 38. Sorry, Tamara, I didn't mention this to you when I was mentioning. Page 38 is our income and expenditure statement, or income statement. No, page 38 of the agenda, further up.
Oh, 38th agenda.
Yeah, that is. If you could zoom in on that a little bit. So that is our income statement. And as I mentioned, we have a 10 million surplus for the year. That is not the last row, but the total row above that. As you can see, that has capital grants of 13.6 million further up in the income, the first section. Some of that is recurring capital grants that we get every year, but some of it is non-recurring. When you adjust for that non-recurring, we end up with a deficit of about 1.5 million. So now budget will have a lot of numbers and a lot of detail behind it, but a good way to get a handle on the financial situation and the financial statements is to look at what we call ratios, right? We calculate certain ratios that gives us an indicator of where things are at. So that starts at, where was that page? It's page 56, 55, 56 of the statements. So that's, yeah, oops. Yeah, so that's, so the first bit, I'm going to jump around a little bit because this is in the order of how LGV wants statements presented. So the first one I'll look at is the third one on that page, which says financial management's rates concentration. It shows a rates concentration of around 55%. What that means is out of our total revenue, about 55% of our total revenue comes from rates, right? Now, the bigger percentage, the more control we have of our own finances, right? Usually, LGV wants us to be around 60 to 70%, but us in the rural and regional areas, it's almost impossible to get to that level. Whereas larger metro councils with larger populations and larger property bases will be able to get to that. For a regional council or a rural city, 55 is a pretty good number, but it does mean that we are relying on state and federal governments for quite a bit of our funding, and therefore any changes in that creates risks for us. So that's what that means. After that, I'll go to the one right below that, which is the cost, sorry, right in that page, the next one. That's the expenses per property. So our rates, we get revenue per property. So we also measure expenses per property. And as you can see, it is going up over the four years, starting from this current year to the budget to the next 3 years. It's on average increasing by about 3.2%. That is generally in line with inflation, right? However, we know that in the past, and definitely this year or the coming year as well, our rates cap has not kept up with inflation, right? So our rates caps this year is 2.75%, which is below that 3.2%, which creates pressure on the budget for the revenue to keep up with expenses. So that's going to be a challenge going forward, right? Then I am going to go 2 pages down and look at the second line item there. It says operating position, right? And that is what I refer to as the underlying position, which I mentioned we are having at a deficit of 1.5 million, which amounts to 2.3%. Now, this current year, it's showing a slightly higher number of 9.1%, but there's a specific reason for that, which is the timing of the FAGS grant that we got. The federal government changed the timing of the FAGS grants. What it did was this year it moved it from, instead of getting it on the 30th of June, they moved it to the 1st or 2nd of July, which pretty much meant quite a bit of that grant went into a different year. That messed up our numbers. It doesn't have a direct impact, but that ratio gets, how it's reported gets impacted. If you adjust for that difference, we would be at 0.01%, which is pretty much break even for this year. However, you can see going forward, it is showing a small deficit. Given the small number in itself, they are not significant. What is significant there is the trend. So that is something that we will need to look at going forward, because it shows that our expenses are rising slightly more or slightly faster than our revenue. You can see right on the right hand corner, there's a negative there. That shows that it's an unfavorable trend, and that is certainly something that we have to work on as we go forward, because you cannot have that in that direction going indefinitely. We'll run into financial pressures, financial issues. So that is something that to be kept in mind. Then I am going back to the first page we were on. Sorry about that. The second line item there, which is about asset renewals and upgrades. I mentioned that this year, we are looking at spending more on renewals than what we provided for depreciation. So you can see 179% figure in that blue column. That is what is this year. So that's why that's more than 100%. But as you can see, ideally, you want to spend what you provide for on your renewals. But as you know, assets fall for renewal at different times depending on when you purchased and how they have deteriorated. So you can't always match it exactly 100%. In the forward years, you can say it's going down a little bit, but you have to remember in this, so if you look at the past 2 years and this year, it has been quite a bit above 100. Generally, I like to look at this ratio as a 5-year rolling basis, and if that 5-year rolling basis keeps to around 100%, we are doing well. So on that basis, even though the right-hand corner says negative, we are fairly okay in that indicator. Then I'm going to look at our cash position, which I mentioned. We are quite comfortable in that. If you look at the first line item there, that's talking about liquidity. That's the current assets compared to current liabilities, what we get and what we had to pay. Ideally, you want to keep it to about 150%. We are at about 300%. So our cash position, we are quite comfortable in our cash position. However, like I said, if our underlying position continues to be negative, you'll see that deteriorating. So that's the focus that we had to keep on. And I'm going to the third page back again because there's another liquidity figure, which is the first row there, again at around 300%. That is cash compared to current liabilities. And if you have 100%, that is more than enough for normal operations. So that's unsurprisingly showing a good position as well. Then I'm going to look at the debts next. So the page previous to that, second row, or the first 2 rows. First, we are looking at non-current liabilities compared to our own source funds, which is our rates. Usually, a 20% to 25% is a comfortable situation. We are at 5%, showing that our debts are really low. We are just at 700,000. The similar thing, loans and borrowings compared to rates. You can and interest compared to rates. There are 2 ratios in that next box. The loans generally easily around 50%, and interest, if you pay 10% as interest, we are still doing all right. Both those ratios are way below that, so we are quite comfortable. And the final ratio I'm going to look at is in the next page. It's rates collection. You can see we are having unpaid rates of around 18% going up to 20%. That is not an acceptable situation. One reason for that is that we have not enforced collection practices since the COVID pandemic. So we are starting on that. We have issued final notices of demand for about 275 properties that have more than 3 years in arrears. That means that for the last 3 years, 2 years plus, they haven't paid anything on their rates notices. So we will be taking that action, and eventually we will, if we have to go and initiate legal action on that, those will come back to councils for decisions. So you can see we are looking at pushing that ratio down going forward. Even 13%, 12.9, 13.5 is a little bit high. Ideally, you want that below 10%. So that is a bit of a red flag there that we have to work on, which we have started working on already. We have looked at some other very large debts, especially properties owned by incorporated entities, whether they are companies or trusts or etc., and whether we can take a different course of action with them, not just under the LGA, but using the Corporations Act as well. Under the LGA, it is extremely difficult to recover debts. If you compare the Victorian LGA with the New South Wales and Queensland, the Victorian LGA makes it a lot more harder for councils to collect unpaid debts. But we will work on that, and that certainly will be a focus. So that's a quick summary of of the budget and our underlying financial position. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. Very detailed presentation, and understand obviously there's a lot more behind it than one page of numbers, having worked through the process over the last couple of months with a significant sized budget folder. So thank you for the work that's got us to this point. Councillors, opportunity to ask questions of Director, Finance Manager, and if necessary they can refer to the relevant Program Director for answers if required. Councillor Jennings.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Pardon me. So, well, sort of a question and sort of a comment. Just picking up on what Mr. Fernando said about the expenses creeping up, and in my analysis of it, I'm looking at some expenses there with an increase of up to 20% over the estimate. But in our forecasting of income, we're pretty constant. To my mind, we've been fairly conservative with what we're forecasting. And over the 4-year period up to 29-30, we're only estimating a growth of $1 million for that 4-year period in income. Yet, as I said, there's 20+% increases in expenses. Is there a rationale for that?
Yeah, there will be some items that jumps up to a very high number, but overall our expenses are going up around 3.5%
Per annum?
As per annum, as a total, yes. Yes, and in general, that is a approach you take in budgeting, is to be conservative in budgeting for your revenue, and also, but not too conservative in your expenses, because that helps you to maintain that budget. But at the same time, like I mentioned, we are subject to rate caps, and
yes,
we know that that has been below the CPI consistently for the last 5 or 6 years. So that's another reason why we are being conservative in budgeting for revenue. And then while the last 3 or 4 years it has been kept constant, our biggest grant, which is the FAGS, hasn't kept pace with inflation either. So 2 of our big items are seeing a lot of pressure, and like I mentioned, that will mean that we have to really start looking at our expenses. And I know, and we know councils, us included, going all the way up to ALGA, has been advocating for changes to those things. But any changes we know isn't likely to happen in the short term. And even if there are changes, it's going to be pretty gradual, any increases. So yeah, no question, we'll need to look at how we deal with that, and those are things that will come back to council for decisions.
So I guess
Before you go further,
Yep.
Councillor Jennings, just to clarify for the benefit of the public, FAGS refers to the Federal Assistance Grants Scheme, which is a recurrent grant that we currently get from the federal government. Many years ago, that was around 1% of federal government taxation revenue. It now sits at less than 0.5% of federal government taxation revenue, and council, along with council organisations such as the Australian Local Government Association, have long been advocating for increases to that. Sorry for the interruption, but I thought it valuable for the public to understand
Yes.
that what FAGS actually stands for. It's not the little packet of lollies we used to get back when I was a kid. Politically incorrect, no doubt, these days. Those grants have shrunk significantly. Sorry, Councillor Jennings, go on with any further questions.
Well, just in that context, for the relevance for us is something in the order of $10 million difference to the budget.
Annually.
The budget annually.
10 million
Annually that we don't have to do the things that we need to do and want to do. So I guess my thought further to that last question was, if we know that revenue is going to be tight, we're coming through a difficult period, and we have flagged this, that there's a gap between what we're going to be able to raise and what we're going to need to spend. Well, the first thing we should be doing is looking, as you've flagged, at our expenses and how do we bring those down to what we do know, that if it's 3% or something like that, and you've already mentioned that our expenses at 3.5% to 4% or whatever the number is, that 1% can make quite a sizable difference. So I'm just putting it out there that we want to be prepared, and we want it on the table that we need to be looking at all expenses, that we can give ourselves a little bit of room rather
Did you
than
have a
have to make
question
those.
around that, Councillor Jennings?
Well, is there going to be any further work done with regard to what we've already asked for and what we've identified as the gap?
So yes, like I said, we have started looking at it. I guess what you have to keep in mind also is councils don't have a lot of what would be usually considered as discretionary spending, like advertising and things like that, big advertising budgets. So when we do cut back on expenses, generally it's around employee costs and or materials and services, and they tend to have a direct impact or a consequence on the services we deliver. So that's the balance that we have to start working on and looking at, to say what are the key core services and what are the services that we can play around with to sort of pull that back a little bit. So we are just starting led by the finance manager to work on the 10-year long-term financial plan, and it's really there that we need to look at how we can start pushing down on some of those expenses and where we are comfortable with the consequences of those expenses. So we will definitely start working on that as soon as this budget cycle is finished.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Jennings?
Well, whilst I've got the microphone, I was having a bit of trouble with the Pioneer settlement, trying to line up the numbers from the draft budget that we were presented with some while ago to look through, and the highlight that came through in this budget. And I was trying to get my head around how, on the highlight one, at first glance, it looks like there's only about a $300 and something thousand difference between the OPEX and the revenue. 3.6 million versus 3.3 million. But when I look into it further, there's CapEx there of $1 million. But the revenue doesn't reflect any grant money or any external money within that. I would have thought that that should, if you're going to show CapEx as a separate line there, if it's just the OPEX versus the revenue, that there should be an identification of non-operating revenue.
Yes, you're correct, Councillor, in that it's just that that's how we are required to present as per the accounting standards, etc. There's approximately $100,000 there in capital works and another $104,000 in reserve movements that is coming in there to fund that additional capital expenses. So, go ahead.
And that revenue item there, that includes all revenue relating to the Pioneer settlement, so it does include capital revenue also. It's not split out like the expenses are, obviously, but it's each total revenue. So of that 1,050,000 capital works, I think there's 900,000 of that is grant funded.
Okay, so just for me to be clear, the actual operating loss for the budgeted period is how much?
Well, it'll be 1,390. 1,390,000.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers and Councillor Englefield.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've got three questions. First one is the 18% unpaid rates. To my understanding, that's if our road revenue is around 35 million, that's around 5 million that's unpaid. on a yearly basis. Would that be accurate to say? And is there any way to apply to state government through, because of that loss, that they can help us out somewhere to cover that loss? Because, yeah, it's a big whack to our budget.
Yeah, so it is, I'm giving an opinion here now, but I would think it is extremely unlikely that state government will help us because we have outstanding rates that we haven't collected. Like I mentioned in my summary, we are putting in a program. We haven't applied any legal process to recover those outstanding debts since the COVID pandemic. We relaxed a lot of collection processes then, and we really haven't picked that up. So that is a number that has built up over about 4 or 5 years. And that's, I agree, that is not where we should be.
So could that be in excess of $20 million over the number of years since COVID?
No, over the those years, it has built up to $5 million.
$5 million, okay.
And we are in the process of putting in, as I mentioned, we have sent final letters of demand to about 275 properties that have long outstanding debts.
Yep.
And we will be taking the next steps depending on whether they respond to those letters or not.
So can we, is there a state average that we are above average or below average?
We are above average. We should be no more than about 10%. We are at 18%.
Yeah, above average, all right. Okay. Next question, the fire services levy. It's out of our control. We've got to collect it. Can you tell us just how much is being generated from the fire services levy that's going out of our municipality?
I'll have to take that up on notice.
On
I don't
notice,
have
okay.
that figure right now.
Okay. And then the other one, the concern I've had about is our diesel expenses going through the roof. So are we closely monitoring that blowout and mitigating that as much as we can?
Yes, we when it initially came up, we had several discussions around how we were going to manage that, and we had identified through the ELT certain triggers that could even make the business continuity plans to come into play. Those triggers have not so far been activated, but we have been monitoring. We have been also closely engaged with the Municipal Association of Victoria in understanding our legal obligations because of the transport chain order that the state government, the federal government made. We will have some obligations to pay certain increases in cost to our suppliers, and we have done some provisions both in this budget as well as in the current year's budget to set aside monies in case we have to make those payments.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Councillor Englefield.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I see Mr Fernando in the snapshot and through your presentation you talked about a number of indicators. I was just wondering, particularly in regard to, and you slightly touched on it as well, our employee costs, which are effectively 24 mil,
Yes.
and I'm guessing that that's just the direct costs, as in super, workers' comp, wages,
All of
salaries.
that.
Yep. But it's not of any other associated costs, buildings, vehicles. That's the direct cost for wages, yeah. Which, when you look at our total budget of $75 million, it's effectively roughly $75 million, except it's effectively 33% of our total revenue. So, you know, is there an indicator where that number becomes a concern?
Yeah, well, what that number, it is primarily driven by one, the enterprise agreements. So the annual increases are driven by the enterprise agreements, and that's negotiated once in 3 or 4 years. So we have to stick to that. So the other factor is our headcount, or more appropriately the FTE, the full-time equivalent number of staff. We carry around 190 FTEs in our CARDA at the moment. For size, a council of this size and revenue, around 200 is a good number. Generally, a rule of thumb is about 1% of the population. But it depends on the services you do. For instance, we don't have water and sewer. Other councils in other states have water and sewer, so that affects the FTEs and so forth. The other rule of thumb is, and this depends on how you conduct your business, is that wages should be about a third of your costs. But again, that depends on whether you use contractors more or less. For instance, we have all our construction contracts as construction activity as contractors. Some councils may have a construction crew in-house, which may impact that. Definitely the head count aspect will be something that will be looked at as we look at the 10-year long-term financial plan. And we also have very recently adopted our workforce plan, which we will be working through that as well.
Anything else? Councillor Broad?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, I'm sure you're going to get to it, around, I'm sure you get to the next steps, but we've used the wording, make this available for public inspection, and invite comments on the proposed budget in the motion as it stands. What's that actually look like? What's the difference between that and community consultation, or how it's previously been worded? I'm aware this is the first year that we've done this sort of process. So if you could just explain that and the differences between what we've done and what we're looking to do, and community inspection, why that's being used.
So the community inspection or displaying the budget, having it available for community to inspect is a requirement under the Local Government Act. So 2 weeks we have to do that. In the past, we've used that window also as a consultation process for community to give us feedback. However, we have realized that there's not a lot of changes you can do because of the time frames. You have to adopt the budget finally by the 30th of June, and it takes a long time, especially if there are significant changes that has changed reactions on other items. So this year, we went out for community consultation before we started the budget process in November, asking for input from the community on what they wanted to see in the budget. We had something like 19 submissions, out of which about 5 or 6 submitters came and spoke to council in January. While I don't have the number out of the 19, I think about 16 are incorporated in the budget in one form or another. May not be in the exact way that was requested for, but in one form or another. And some of them are in the longer term plan, not in this budget, but in the forward budgets. So that's the process that we have undertaken this time. But we will display, as required by the Act, we will display the budget for 2 weeks and invite comments on the budget as well.
Thank you. So with the community comments, what happens there? Is that an email to council, or is it a let's talk? What's actually what are they commenting on if we've already had our community consultation? I'm aware that we voted to have that process, but just for the ratepayers' benefit, obviously this is their budget. What's that actually look like for them if they don't actually like it? They can provide feedback and comment. Let's Talk will be operational. The Let's Talk page will be open for this specific purpose. Hopefully there are no major objections or changes, but at the end of the day, depending on what we get, that will be presented to councillors in the June council meeting, and it's a council decision as to what response we give them and what actions you take based on those comments. But again, this year the better time to provide input was in the initial consultation window.
Thank you. Councillor Thornton.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thank you very much for the report. It was really very, very useful in understanding our position and very clear, provided a lot of clarity. I've just got some questions around a few things, and a couple of my questions have already been answered by the other councillors' questions, which is great. Just around our rating, further to the rating strategy that we already have, the use of differentials is still concerning me with regard to fairness, and I'm just wondering, firstly, how do differentials actually improve the simplicity of the rating calculation? And also, are they generally supposed to be temporary or can be long-term?
Yeah, so having differing differentials, that is a term, across the different categories of ratepayers, like residential, commercial, industrial, it doesn't simplify, it complicates the rating system a little bit. But why councils choose to go that way is to try and level off the rate burden borne by different categories of ratepayers, because we know the valuations don't exactly move in unison between those categories. For instance, some years farmland valuations might go up, other years they might drop depending on market conditions, and residential properties will move in different directions. So the real purpose of having different differentials or different rates in the dollar is to try and balance that off so that no category is bearing an undue burden. Now that is of course a judgment call made by the councillors. There is no one right position to take, and how many years? 2 years back, 3 years back, this council adopted a rating plan, and that indicated how we were going to apply those different rates in the dollars to the different categories, and that's what we have carried forward to this year as well. It has one more year to go, and so during the next financial year we'll be working on a new rating plan for the next 4 years.
2 to go.
Sorry?
2 to go. It was adopted a year ago.
Oh, sorry. 2 more years to
With
go.
2 to go.
So not the coming budget year, the following year we will have to work on a new rating plan for the next 4 years.
Thank you. And so to specifically ask around the differential for dryland farming, how many dryland farming properties are rateable at the moment, and how many rating notices are generally held? Do we know how many rating notices are generally held by individual enterprises? For example, many farms have more than one property notice in their enterprise.
Yes. So if it is under the same name, then we can figure out whether it's enterprise, but sometimes it may be a group under different names, so they might have different incorporated names. Sometimes it's individuals, but it might be X and Y holding this property, X and Z holding the next property, and Y and Z holding another property. So do we use that as a group or not? It's sort of, and you don't always have a precise understanding of what those groups are, because there's nothing to say these people are a group or these entities are a group. But on the question of how many dryland farms,
1,226.
1,226 dryland farming properties.
Okay, and that compares to the irrigation properties, which don't have the differential?
2011.
Okay, so you've got virtually double. I guess it speaks to the questions of fairness in my mind about is it fair that a differential, which actually gives a benefit, I suppose, to certain categories, and in this instance, a fewer number in that category, so it's giving a benefit to a small number over spreading it more evenly across a large number of. So I'm wondering how that sits with the community in terms of fairness. Thank you very much. That's answered that question. regarding the community engagement, you've already answered about, one of my questions was going to be, as we've started our new method for community engagement back in November, I was curious how many of our engagements, where eligible, have been incorporated into the budget. So you've answered that, which is fabulous. Just examining a few of the services and how we're spending the revenue and some of the changes from one year to the next. I just noticed, and because we often talk about discretionary and core services, I noticed that the economic stimulus program has increased a considerable amount, or looks to be increasing a considerable amount from last year to this year. My reading says from under $3 million to over $4 million. I'm not sure if that comes from rates or grants and the like. Can you provide some clarity?
Yeah, the economics, that program, runs the big grant sort of group of funding sort of things that we receive in the past, like the local roads and community infrastructure projects. This year's one has the Growing the Regions Fund money running through it. So I think council attracted $5 million worth of funding for those projects. So it's more of just a timing sort of issue on what funding stream might have been out there and as to how we run it through that program. So the local roads and community infrastructure was sort of how that was set up to start with, but it's all now done and dusted. We've now got the Growing the Regions Fund projects running through it.
That's provided the clarity that I was looking for, because it's not largely rates that's going into the economic stimulus. It's actually grants. No. Okay. And just, I guess, a couple of questions around some positive increases that I can see in the budget, which is it was good to see an increase in what looks like an increase in maternal and child health, the program of maternal and child health, and wondering what that's covering.
We'll have to take,
We might have to take that on notice,
Which is-
Councillor.
our
Director
Communities.
Myers isn't here today.
Yeah.
I've had a request to Director Fernando to speak into the microphone so you can be heard.
Yeah, we'll take that on notice. The program itself is partly grant funded, so has a lot of human element in it, wages. But beyond that, I can't tell you.
Thank you. Just one more question. It also looks to have there also looks to be an $80,000 increase in elected members' budget. I'm just wondering what that encompasses.
Again, the specifics we will have to get back to you, but I can say there was a CPI increase in the what we pay to the elected members. We also did a small increase in the training and development budget for the elected members, so those would have contributed to that, but I can give you a breakdown of that once we get back. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Englefield, you've got another question?
Yeah, one last from me. Thank you, Mr Mayor. On page 24 of the agenda, it's in relation to the Pioneer Settlement. I see that the 24-25 actual net cost to the budget to the ratepayers was approximately 960 grand. The forecast net cost to the ratepayers for June 30 this year is north of 1.5 mil. What's the reason for the massive increase in costs to the ratepayer in regard to the issues that we all have and our long-term indicators suggest that we need to be mindful of our expenditure?
Yeah. So the major reason there is the loss of revenue, basically. So the site was under construction, issues like that down there. So they've had to reduce numbers go through the gate. So the revenue level there, well, it's, $300,000 less than the prior year. So that would weigh heavily on it. The forecast, though, has an additional $250,000 worth of capital expenditure, which was the council, the councillor initiative for the painting of the train, items like that. So I suppose that's added to it a little bit also.
Those,
That's the additional
one-off
cost.
cost is what the finance manager is trying to say. So there were a couple of one-off costs that contributed to that increase.
The actual expenditure year on year is really constant, I would have thought.
We're gonna do-
I've got a question around that, so I'm happy to jump in, councillor Englefield,
Yeah,
just around that, because I've dissected the numbers somewhat. The 25-26 OPEX budget for the Pioneer Settlement was $950,000 or thereabouts. This is dissecting the numbers as best I can out of the budget papers. The 25-26 forecast number is $1.27 million, an increase of 34%. That's operational expenditure only, not capital expenditure. A significant blowout. So I guess some explanation around that. You've talked about the less revenue. However, when we were budgeting, we knew the site was going to be under construction. So I guess it comes back to, is our budgeting accurate? And if it's not, then the OPEX budget for the 26-27 financial year is about $1.25 million. So a blowout on that one of 34% takes it to nearly $1.7 million. So these are the risks as councillors we've got to consider. So I would like to know, in addition to Councillor Engelfield's question, what measures are put in place to manage these budgets as the year transpires, so that this situation doesn't happen.
Yeah, I will let the director answer some of it, but in general, we will be, and we have been, and we will be looking at monthly financial reports and tracking them, and definitely looking at revising or reviewing the budgets on a quarterly basis. So that will be the primary control, so that we know early if we are not meeting where we should be, and then decisions can be made on what the course of action is. So that's the primary budgetary control that we have in
Yep.
the organisation, to keep a track of items. Yeah.
And I understand as councillors we do get the quarterly reports, however they're not broken down to the same level of detail. So I think that's a consideration going forward, particularly given the number of questions around the table today around the Pioneer Settlement in particular. Did you have anything further, Councillor Englefield?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Righto. I've got a couple of questions. I've had the Pioneer Settlement one. Follow up from Councillor Thornton's question around maternal and child health. 24-25 actual, 676,000 deficit. Budget for 26-27, over $1 million, an increase of around 50%, just under 50%. So as you take it on notice, that question, I would like an explanation as to why that service is projected to increase nearly 50% in cost to the ratepayer in 2 financial years, because that is significant.
So they did get some external funding added last year. So there's an enhanced MCH service that they got significant funding for.
The revenue on the statement is the same, well, basically the same for the 3 financial years.
Yep, I was just going to say, look, we carried forward an additional $200,000 of spend that they'd received, to complete the project. So that would be adding to the additional cost for the year of funding we'd already received. So that would explain the increase in the operational costs. I believe they might have just recently got some additional funding again, so that might even keep going, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah. So we'll get back to you on those.
Yeah,
questions.
that's
So
fine.
we'll find out the exact number.
Yep. On the statement of capital works, 3.5, I can see that sealed roads drops from around $10 million back to $6 million on the forward estimates. Now, I understand that in the $10 million, I'm assuming there's fair chunk of Carini Street in that as well. Recreational, leisure and community facilities drop over the next 4 years from $1.4 million to zero. And other infrastructure works drop from $4 million down to $250,000 over the next 4 years. You've already spoken, thank you, about the forecast of capital grants. I guess my question around that is that a consequence of a reduced capital grants pool that we're forecasting over the coming years?
That would be one contributor. That would be primarily contributing to potentially new facilities or enhanced facilities. That's where most of our grants go into. But renewing and maintaining the existing assets that we have is not likely to be impacted by the grant situation. We do get some recurring grants. What's the grant name called for the roads?
Roads to Recovery, that one?
Roads to Recovery, yeah. That's a grant that we get for renewal of our roads assets. But for the most part, renewals are funded through rates, either this year's rates or rates that we put aside in previous years for the renewal. Yeah.
Okay. And you've spoken about the trends, and I really appreciate that information. A couple of items out of culture and heritage, given that the Pioneer Settlement's been quite topical. There's a budget line item of over $1 million for a Pentle Island native seed bank nursery. And then in addition, there's the Pentle Island Cultural Tourism Development, which I understand was funded under the same package as the 10 Steps, Pentle Island Footbridge, Robinvale River Terraces. So there's around $2 million of CapEx there at the Pioneer Settlement, which is already under financial pressure. I guess my questions around this is who's going to run it, these programs, and what's the ongoing operational cost of this when we're already looking at the net result of the Pioneer Settlement? And where did the idea of a Pentle Island native seed bank nursery even come from?
Thank you, Mayor. The Pentle Island Seed Bank Nursery came from the Pentle Island Master Plan, which has been presented to Council. We have received funding that is about $2.7 million to help develop base level infrastructure on Pentle Island. So we're talking about walking paths, we're talking about boardwalks, yarning circles, in order to be able to establish access back onto Pentle Island. And as part of the Growing Regions Fund, we've also received the funding to renew the pedestrian bridge from Pioneer Settlement to the Pentle Island. Those projects are under consideration at the moment, and we've discussed that with you and need to come back to you with a report on what are the likely maintenance costs for the first 5 years of installing that infrastructure, bearing in mind it's probably going to be the only time that we get the level of funding we've got for this base level infrastructure with only a $100,000 contribution from the ratepayers.
So is the seed bank nursery attached to the same package of funding, or is it a separate package of funding?
So it will be a separate part of funding on the basis that the base funding that we've received is really to establish the infrastructure that would then allow some of the businesses highlighted in the master plan to establish on Pentle Island. But at the moment, there's not the infrastructure there.
So we'll get a further report of operational costs of those facilities?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, two more. The Swan Hill Showgrounds Sports Precinct Facilities Infrastructure proposed hub there, which is new sporting hub there, which is desperately needed based on that I nearly fell over on the existing floor just a couple of weeks ago when I was up there. That's reliant on grant funding. Do we have a backup plan if we are unsuccessful in receiving, it says in the report, I think $4 million of grant funding. Do we have we modelled what a backup plan might look like in regards to that project?
We haven't actually modelled a plan or a backup plan for that. What we would continue to do is continue talking to federal and state government about other funding opportunities. It is a large-scale investment for council, so we would be hoping to be successful to get a large proportion of that funding from the state and federal government.
Yep.
We're being as ready as we can be, ensuring we've got designs ready to build.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, appreciate that work has been done that allows us to go forward. Last question, just on under environmental sustainability, there's a $30,000 allowance for carbon offset grants, and last year I think there was $15,000 that was allocated to carbon measuring. I'm just wondering if those two programs are related. What outcomes are proposed to be achieved, and whether the carbon measuring has led to any additional grant funding that was suggested that it would lead to.
So again, I'll take those questions if you like, Mayor. The carbon monitoring system is being installed at the moment, so we're putting all of our background information in, which will help us track our carbon emissions, and we will have a presentation of that to council in the next couple of months. That is going to set us up well for the reporting just back to ourselves and our community about what our emissions are, and also help us with offsetting carbon and applying for grants to help us do that. So that money has been spent as per the last year's budget, and it's a continued ongoing subscription cost to council, so it's an operational rather than a CapEx cost ongoing. The carbon offset grant is a budget bid that we made to allow us to offer Landcare groups, now farmers, the opportunity to apply for grants to plant trees on their land or on road reserves in the case of Landcare to offset our light fleet emissions. We would be hoping, similar to the facade grants, that it returns an investment greater than what council invests in the planting of trees.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Jennings, then Councillor Thornton, sorry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just one with regard to waste management. When I look at the comparison to 24/5 forecast and then the budget for next year, there's an increase in the operational expense of $1 million, around about 20%, but our charges have stayed, again, as per my previous comments, reasonably much the same. Are the charges capped as per the rate cap, or is there an opportunity for us to increase our charges there in the future to recoup some of that increase in expenditure?
No.
No, the charges are not kept there. That is one charge that we have discretion on, and this year we are increasing that slightly above the rate cap, so the charges. It is a bit, we look at it as a sort of a separate business entity, and we do track and manage the income and expenditure of the waste business. There will be some green waste introductions, etc. next year, which is possibly what is driving the cost up. I'll let Director of Infrastructure. Okay.
So the increase though, it's in line with our input, our contractor increases and things like that though. So whatever our landfill and collection contract increases are, that's the increase we apply to our waste collection. There's no additional add-on to that. But the operational expenditure there also It's like further capping. There's a couple of capping projects that have been added to the landfill as well. So, they're on an as-needs basis sort of thing. So, for this year, there's a significant cost in there to be able to do some additional works on that. But again, that's funded from, our waste reserves basically for, works that we've already raised funding for.
Does it include the FOGO bins rollout?
The capital expenditure item there does, yes. So the 788 there, it's got I think it's about 650, I think is the number there for the buying of the bins.
700 odd, I think. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thornton, last question.
Thank you. Just with regard to those arrears that we're facing, and appreciate your comments on that, do we have any idea which categories of property occur more prevalently in the arrears or
Yeah.
unpaid?
I haven't exactly calculated the ratios for each category, but when I was running through the list of properties, it was right across.
Right
all the
across.
categories. There was no single category that jumped out. Yeah.
Okay, and just clarifying on that Pental Island project, did you say it was $100,000, Ms Granger, that it's the rate cost? The rest of the cost of the Pental Island project was a grant, is that?
Yeah, that's correct. The bulk of the money that we've got to develop the base infrastructure is through grants.
Thank you.
Righto, I think that's been a good session. I appreciate Mr Fernando, Mr Free and other directors as you've contributed to the answering of questions. I think that's been really thorough and a lot of information there that I'm sure the community was very interested in. So, councillors, I will ask for a motion, please, in regards to the draft budget. Councillor Thornton? As per
the recommendation.
As per recommendation, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Broad, thank you. Councillor Thornton, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I shouldn't have closed my book so quickly. I think that the questions that we've had today have given a well-rounded discussion so that the community has a fair idea of what's going on in the council budget, and also, more importantly, the report from Mr Fernando and the work of the finance team is much appreciated. I guess the standouts to me are that as a rural council with a couple of large centres, Swan Hill and Robinvale, and a number of smaller centres, that we are in a pretty good financial situation. Clearly there are some issues that we need to keep an eye on, but I think that I'm very comfortable with our position. We've got some headwinds, obviously, as all of the businesses and households in our municipality do, but it's good to see that we are still investing in some of the most loved services in our municipality, such as maternal and child health, parks and reserves, and our roads expenditure. I'm really happy to put this out to the community and happy to see our first new policy or way of doing community engagement with our budget. See that sort of coming to a close through this next couple of weeks, and as we move into adopting our 26-27 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Broad, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, there's a lot that could be said about the budget. One thing that is definitely true is councils are being asked to do a lot more with a lot less. So I think I'm happy to move the budget or the motion as per the recommendation, but as we've discussed with questions and answers, there's a time where coming soon where we need to have a look at what's coming out of this bucket. There's leaks in the bucket that we need to fix. So heaps going on. There's a lot of good stuff happening. So it's not all negative, but no one likes to be told no. No one likes to be the person that says there's got to be budget cuts, and it's a terrible saying, but yeah, there's only one thing worse than budget cuts, and that's a financially unstable council. So I don't want to get there, but as it stands at the moment for the next year, it seems like a reasonable budget, but, you know, we'll be monitoring it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Broad. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Englefield.
Hey, thank you, Mr Mayor. I mean, I'd just like to point out make a couple of statements, particularly in regards to, for starters, to the Pioneer Settlement. I mean, I've come from a part of the municipality that's been concerned about the Pioneer Settlement for a while, I'd have to say, and just, you know, something like a 65% increase in the cost to the ratepayers from 2023 to the 2026-7 budget is a concern. I understand there's a fair bit of infrastructure down there that's probably not in the best shape. It's probably looking like it's going to need some, if it's going to need some significant capital investment. So I mean, I'm flagging that. I would like to flag that now that I'm concerned about that. I think obviously we all are as a council. We're concerned about our costs overall, but it would be the escalation in the cost to the budget of the Pioneer Settlement, particularly in a very short period of time, is something that we really need to be mindful of. Just a couple of other things. The livestock exchange has been a hot potato in the municipality this year. So it's interesting to point out that even though it's not reflected in the draft budget papers that we're proposing now because of the way of the model accounting rules, that the livestock exchange had an operating profit of approximately 270 grand this year. And I'd also like to point out to the ratepayers, or suggest to the ratepayers, that they probably go and have a look at page 48 on the agenda. Of the agenda papers, I think it's page, what is it, of the budget itself, where there's a bit of a breakdown by the classes of the gross percentage increase of the rate take. Gives you a bit of an idea, or another bit of a perspective of what sort of increase you may be facing outside of just the rate cap, because it's there by class. So while it's not obviously specific to an individual ratepayer, it is just another indicator of what you might be looking at. And I would encourage, as much as the process is different, that if you feel that you have something to say about our budget, now's your last opportunity to say it over the next few weeks. And, you know, I would encourage you to hop in there and say it. I probably also would like to say that it's a big thing, this budget, and a lot of things get hidden in gross numbers. So there's lots of projects in there, like, for example, that the Mayor's talked about, and like, for example, I would say that we have it's only a small thing, but we have a commitment in there to EV charges, for example, where we get $10,000 worth of income off them, but they cost us 30 grand in maintenance costs. So, you know, all of these things, little and big, over the next few years, giving our indicators aren't necessarily tracking in the right direction, particularly our major underlying debt indicator. We're really going to have to watch things.
Thank you, Councillor Englefield. Gave you a little bit more time because the other two speakers were a little bit shorter, sorry, and I forgot to look at my watch, sorry. Any other councillors? Councillor Jennings and Councillor Rogers.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I just want to make a couple of comments too. Taking up what Councillor Broad said, I think the budget in general is fairly balanced, and I also agree that it's not all bad. We've had some really good wins, and there's a lot of good stuff happening in our community and in the projects that we're doing, that we've completed in the last 12 months and that are underway and in planning. But it is our role as elected councillors to cast a critical eye, and I think given that this is our second budget. We're probably a little bit better, most of us, a little bit more across what we're looking for, and probably have cast a more critical eye on it. So we will be asking the questions, and we will be following through to try and, because we are in uncharted waters for the next while, it's just we've inherited a reasonably sound financial position, which would be the envy of a lot of other municipalities. And to be frank, we just don't want to bugger it up. So we will be keeping a close eye and asking questions for explanation as we go into the year, if and when this budget is adopted by 30 June. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to support the other councillors, what they've said. It's a huge undertaking to do the budget, and you know, we are in a good position. I see it. There's significant challenges and influences from all different areas of our community, but we are achieving some great things around the municipality from one end to the other. It's hard to get the balance and to make it fair for everyone, but I don't see anyone of our team that hasn't tried their utmost to do that. There's significant influences there that we have to watch and monitor into the future, and I really feel that we are travelling into an uncertain time. There is an election at the end of this year, and I feel that we've been grossly unfairly treated by the existing state government with the revenue that we receive back from the $2 billion of revenue that this municipality generates to the Australian Commonwealth Government, then goes back to the state government, and we see $35 million come back to us out of a $2 billion input. So I think hopefully after this election we'll meet some promises that we've been promised, and hopefully see a new bridge and some a better deal with our roads, rates and rubbish, that we can provide better services to our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. I'd like to speak to the budget. Councillor Jennings, if you could just you can stay there, I can speak from here, but you keep me in order in case I get out of order. Thank you. I'd like to support the other councillors and speak and support this draft budget. And I'll reiterate, draft budget. This is not a final adoption. It's a draft budget, and as Councillor Broad highlighted, there is an opportunity for the community to still get involved, to give us your feedback, whether that's via the Let's Talk page or whether that's directly to councillors. All of our contact details are on the council website, so to the community, you can contact us directly in regards to this budget before it comes to the June meeting for final adoption. Because, let's face it, they say a day is a long time in politics. Well, the last 6 months has been quite significant from the time that we started the consultation on this budget to where we are now. And I guess personally my thoughts have shifted, influenced by the people who elected me and the people who talk to me and seek my representation around these tables. So I'd like to see, and I want to know from the community, I believe it's pretty important that we have a conservative budget, that we focus on the basics, the roads, the footpaths, the drainage, the waste, the community infrastructure, the planning and the essential services that we really, really need. And maybe this is a time where some of the nice-to-haves we can't have anymore, as one of my other councillors alluded to as well. We can't always have what we want. We have world circumstances where long-term bond levels tipped over 5% last week, which is an indicator of economic stress, higher interest rates and possibly higher inflation, despite what the federal budget might tell us. The economic stress is not over, and the fuel excise subsidy returns on the 1st of July, and petrol prices will go up 25 cents a litre straight away. So, to point out to the ratepayer, our rates are capped at 2.75%. Our employee costs are increasing at around 9% this financial year. Our insurances are up around 13%, and our government grants are decreasing by around 20% in the next financial year, and forecast to drop to around 1/4 of last financial year's levels by 28-29. Ratepayers also need to be aware that the cost of compliance on items that the state government requires us to report on costs you, I'm going to say, hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year to make reports on compliance to the state government. So I believe it's time for a conservative budget, but I want to hear from the community. I want you to have your say. I want you to let us know what you want us to do, what you want us to offer, what changes you want us to make to this budget, and what's really, really important to you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Debate's been had. I don't think anybody's really spoken against it, but I think every councillor has had an opportunity to have their say, so I don't think there's any need for a right of reply as such. So I will put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you again, Mr Fernando, Mr Free and directors for answering a lot of questions there. Really appreciate it. We will move on to agenda item 2.2, Governance Report, Council Policy Review and Delegations Update. Mr Fernando and Ms Morris, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So this is essentially change. We have to review our delegations, not necessarily sometimes because the delegations themselves change, but also sometimes, a lot of the time, the legislation behind those delegations change, and then we have to change accordingly. Sometimes it's just a matter of saying your delegation is now under clause 12 instead of clause 10. So some things like that. So this is really, we have probably 2 months process where we have gone through, and reviewed, I don't know, probably a 2-inch thick booklet of various clauses. I'm quite thankful about 65% was for the Director of Planning who had to look at those changes because it was against a lot of there was a lot of the Planning Act changes that happened. Ms. Morris, you want to add anything to that?
No, like Stephen said, it was mainly in relation to planning. It's the S6 delegation, so that's from council laws to council staff. We're only addressing that in this today. The other amendments in the Maddox letter that was attached to your report was looking at the S7, which was dealt with back in April. So we're only looking at the S6 today, and we've provided you the documents that show all of the changes. And hopefully, if you're satisfied, you'll approve that today, and we'll move on. Do you want to do the rest? Then the next part of the report is looking at a couple of the policies. I think you're all aware. Sorry, I've just lost my. So we're looking at the policies, the community engagement policy. We've amended that to better align with legislative requirements. The child safety standards policy. There's been some changes in relation to the register, the national register, and we've updated some of that information in that policy. The community gardens policy, we've just made some minor changes to that particular one. The fair access policy, that was a policy that there was a lot of information came through this council less than 12 months ago, so it's only the 12-month review of that policy, and we're not making any changes to that at this point in time. And then the public art policy, we've made no changes to that one. So what we're hoping today is that councillors will accept those recommendations in relation to the S6 instrument of delegation from council to members of staff, and also accept the changes to those policies.
Thank you, Ms Morris and Mr Fernando. I realise it was quite distracting with the check 1-2 going on downstairs. If anybody heard that in the background, that was what was going on, and appreciate that with the agenda already at nearly 400 pages that you chose not to put the extra 2 inches thick document in there, Mr Fernando. Any questions, councillors, in relation to this report? If there's no questions, could I have a motion? Moved, Councillor Jennings.
As per the recommendation,
As per
Mr.
recommendation, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Englefield. Councillor Jennings, do you wish to speak to the to the motion?
Only to say, Mr Mayor, that these are fairly procedural and statutory changes, and 3 of the policies are either minor or no change, and the rest are as per government requirements, so fairly operationally
Yep.
based.
Thank you. Councillor Jean. Councillor Englefield.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Jennings.
Thank you. Any other speakers to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.3, FOGO service introduction. Ms Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. In order to improve the circular economy, the Victorian Government is standardising household waste and recycling services to increase resource recovery and to reduce waste to landfill. Councils must implement services in line with Recycling Victoria under the Circular Economy Act 2021, which requires Council to introduce a food, organics and garden service, which is abbreviated to FOGO, in order to achieve these objectives under the Act. So what is FOGO? This is your food scraps and your garden waste. It also enables residents the ability to recycle food scraps such as meat, bones and dairy products that can't be used in home composting systems. In 2025, an audit of Council's waste revealed that 37% of the weight of the Swan Hills municipal waste from the garbage bin consists of organic material. Interestingly, for our rural township properties, this was even more. It was closer to 43%. These are quite high figures. So clearly diverting these types of materials through a separate curbside service will reduce the amount of material that is sent to our landfill, which also reduces Council's exposure to the Victorian Government Waste Levy. The draft regulations have things that Council must consider with the introduction of this service. It must be rolled out to all properties that have an existing curbside service, having an opt-out service provision, and Council must also ensure that other curbside bins, being the red general waste bin and your yellow recycling bin, are not contaminated with FOGO material. Many councils across Victoria have already implemented a FOGO service. So Council has researched these other councils to best understand their learnings and determine the best options for our community. One of the main concerns raised by community with a FOGO service is around smell. Experience by other councils indicates that a weekly FOGO service is preferred, combined with a fortnightly red waste bin, as this encourages residents to use the most frequent service to dispose of food and organic waste. Ultimately, this will reduce the smell. From these learnings and working the various issues through with councillors, it is proposed that a 240 litre FOGO green bin collected weekly and a fortnightly 120 litre general waste red bin is the best outcome for our community. There will need to be extensive community consultation to educate our community around the FOGO service and the changes to the bin sizes, pick-up frequencies and what can and can't go in each bin, noting that some of this information is still to be finalised once the government approves the actual guidelines. Our proposal is that a service will be provided to all members of our community. There will be some exceptions allowed for, and these will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. However, it is imperative to note that this is a mandated service, and any exceptions will be scrutinised and justified. Exceptions would only be considered if an existing composting system could be demonstrated and future bin audits confirmed that no FOGO was placed in the other bins. Alternative bin sizes would also be considered due to specific family needs and or space issues. As part of the rollout of the new FOGO bins, kitchen caddies and liners will also be provided. This service needs to be implemented prior to the 1st of July 2027. It is intended to confirm the final service collections and then purchase the necessary bin infrastructure for the rollout. As the bins are purchased, which could be a very time-consuming process considering many councils are purchasing bins and going through the same process at the moment for the same reasons, education will be provided to the community and collection schedules and work with a collection contractor can now commence. Council, this is a very big change in waste collection for our community. It is a mandated service, but it is also environmentally best practice and is an exciting step forward. Therefore, it is recommended, as per on the screen, the Council proceed to align implementation of the FOGO service with the government-mandated commencement date of the 1st of July 2027 or sooner by introducing a weekly 240 litre FOGO service, which is your green bin, and a fortnightly service for a 120 litre general waste red bin to all residents with an existing curbside service. To provide kitchen caddies and biodegradable liners for residents to assist households manage food waste as part of the FOGO service implementation, and to advise the community on the need for the FOGO curbside service and the changes that will occur to existing curbside services due to the implementation of the FOGO service through an extensive media campaign and education program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Johnston. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Obviously, this is mandated for us to do. So 2 questions. Is there any funding from the state government to help us implement this? And 2, is there any idea, and there may not be any, but what this means for a ratepayer's bill? How much this will cost our ratepayer?
Thank you for your question. In terms of funding, there is some funding that is being made available for the purchase of bins. As per the budget conversation earlier, this council has been quite prudent in terms of a waste reserve, and it will be up to council at a future date to determine the use of that waste reserve and whether that could contribute to the purchase of bins. The waste reserve is there for a variety of reasons, which is the capping of our landfill cells and the creation of new cells, but it can also be put aside for the purposes of purchasing bins. But as I said, there's also a grant opportunity that will be that we will be certainly applying for once we actually lock in the actual service, and then we will actually apply for that grant. And that's pretty much it's not going to cover a huge amount, but it should cover some of those costs. In terms of the bill to our community and what that costs each year in terms of their rates, that final figure is still to be determined. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Conversations do need to be had with our collection contractor. There's also, in terms of having an understanding as to members of our community that may opt out, because obviously if there is some issues in that regard, we would have to review that figure. But one of the bigger issues at this moment in time is obviously the uncertainty with the terminal gate price and oil prices. Some of the real costs are associated there with fuel and obviously the plastics in terms of the supply of bins. So we are being cautious in regards to putting some actual figures out there in terms of what that cost will be. Preliminary estimates that we have done do indicate that those that have an existing 240 litre red bin will probably end up having a similar impact or in terms of what they're currently paying, which is in the order of around the $615. It will be a similar number to that, or maybe slightly more, and they will have a reduction in terms of their red bin, and but they will obviously have the added benefit of a FOGO bin. Other areas need to be determined. We're trying to roll out a one cost for everyone. So some of those that have a 120 litre red bin at the moment will retain that, but they'll have a FOGO service, and there may be a more substantial increase to those. So, but as I said, at the moment, because of the uncertainty, what's going on across the world really, some of those are still to be finalised.
Councillor Angerfield.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify a couple of points, sorry. Those with a 240 bin can choose to keep that. But what needs to be clear to everybody is that the red bins, whether they're 120 or 240, it will go from a weekly service to a fortnightly service.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the intention is that we are trying to encourage the food and your green waste to go into your FOGO bin. So the intention is for those that do have a current red bin, that they will be a 240 litre red general waste will be going back to a 120 litre, unless there's a demonstrated need for them to have that larger bin size. So some of that criteria will be assessed in the future, but there should be no need for people to have as a general rule. Obviously there's going to be some set case-by-case examples where it is appropriate, but as a general rule, we want people to be recycling properly. So we want people that are putting their food waste and their green waste in their red bins, because a lot of residents are doing that now, we want them to use the FOGO bin. There is no incentive for people to use the green bin if they continue to have a 240 litre red bin. So it is about education and it's about changing behaviours.
So clearly then the 240 bins, unless you have an exemption, will be taken back and you'll be issued a new 120 red bin, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just a couple from me. In regards, obviously, the Ultima composting facility is a key element of the success of FOGO. Where are we at? The facility's built, obviously. Where are we at with the operational aspects of the Ultima compost facility in relation to starting this type of service?
Thank you, Mayor. So obviously, council did receive significant funding for the development of the Ultima composting facility, which is a great facility, and it's there in preparation for the rollout of the FOGO service. We have also had inquiries from other councils wanting to potentially, when they're rolling out their FOGO service, to use our facility as well. We haven't got the product at the moment. We've only got small. Swan Hill does have a green waste bin component at the moment, but it really does need that FOGO, so the food waste, to be in it in order to operate appropriately. So that is something that over the next 6 to 12 months that we will develop the more operational plans around how the Ultima composting facility will operate.
Is that likely to be a in-house operation or a go out for tender contracted operation?
It could be either.
Okay. And in terms of the things have changed, obviously, and now the facility is out at Ultima, so it adds 50 kilometres on to a round trip from the landfill. Will that then impact on the charges that you spoke about in regards to curbside collection, given that it's an extra 50 k's each time a truck has to cart that?
As I indicated, some of the costs are still being really locked down. Obviously, there is a fuel cost that we're all aware of, but those costs that I mentioned earlier, that has included those costs.
Yep, okay. Thank you. If there's no other questions, councillors, could I have a motion? Councillor Thornton?
As per the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Rogers? Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Councillor Thornton, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, thank you, Ms Johnston, for the report. Again, really provides clarity for us as councillors and to the community for as to what is going to be rolled out and what is going to be a significant change and quite a challenging one, I imagine, but not for good reason. For good reason. Not. It's a positive for that. Will be food waste. Will be able to be easily dealt with and composted, and it will be something that everybody contributes to and everybody. So it's normalising that as a practice. I'll leave it at that and look forward to hearing from anyone else.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Rogers, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's a mandated thing, so we have to do it. Just hopefully that down the track with this common sense in it as it rolls out. For example, farmers, we process our own organic waste and food. It's recycles on our farms, but it's good intent in it, and we're mandated, so we have to do it, and that's the end of that. So,
thank you,
as per
Councillor
the
Rogers.
recommendation, yeah.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 2.4, ending section 173 agreement 10 River Road. We'll do this one and then we will take a brief adjournment, councillors. Sorry? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rogers leaving the room. Thank you. If you can note that. Councillor Rogers left the room at 3:48 p.m. Ms Granger.
Thank you. This is an application to remove a Section 173 agreement under the Planning and Environment Act. The Section 173 agreement was applied to a two-lot subdivision in June 2024, which created two small lots, one of 1.87 hectares and one of 1.39 hectares at a 10 River Road. The agreement seeks to limit the development on Lot 2, so it's limiting any further subdivision, any further dwellings. And just talks to Lot 1 may being disturbed from time to time by agricultural uses. In December 2025, Council agreed under the Act to give notice of in principle support to give notice of this application. As a result of giving notice of the application to remove the agreement, we received an objector from a neighbouring landholder who happens to be an authority, and they objected on the basis that it would imply that the future use and development of a dwelling would be acceptable, which would be contrary to the intent of the farming zone and the land subject to inundation overlay. Council most recently had a case where a similar agreement was applied to be removed, and it went to VCAT. VCAT gave significant weight to an objection in this case, and handed down a verbal decision which is quoted within the report, but really said there was no significant change in planning policy to remove Section 173 agreement, which had been recently placed on the title, and that the objection showed that there would likely be impacts from removing the agreement. What you've got in the report is a table to consider what was the purpose of the agreement, what's the surrounding context, and whether the ending of the agreement would disadvantage any person. Again, this is relatively recent and the agreement has been registered. At this stage, the titles for the subdivision haven't been issued, so it's a different situation council finds itself in. And the officer recommendation is that council should refuse to end the Section 173 agreement, registered it on the title. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Granger. Any questions of Ms Granger, councillors? Councillor Inglefield?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Ms Granger, this land would be, it's certainly in the land subject to inundation, and I would also think that it's an environmental sensitive overlay impact there as well. Is that?
That's correct.
And it's within 200 metres of the river?
Correct.
So it would also fall under the, is it the heritage overlay? Because of its...
No, I don't think the heritage
Don't.
overlay, just the
Well,
environmental significance
yeah,
overlay,
yeah.
which refers to the proximity to the river.
Yeah.
It's the Murray River environs.
Yeah.
That's all? Yep, thank you. Any other questions around the Councillor Thornton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The applicant has indicated no intention to build a house. Just querying what planning requirements would there be if in the future that would change, what applications are required?
So there would need to be a planning permit application that would be triggered under the farming zone because the lot is already less than the minimum lot size, but it also would be triggered by the two overlays. So we would be looking at floor heights and things when we're looking at a dwelling, the design of a dwelling.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, could I have a... Oh, you have got a further question, sorry.
Apologies. Regarding Lower Murray Water's objection, have we any indication of when Lower Murray Water are looking to change move the water treatment plants in Swan Hill? If that's, I'm not sure if that's implied.
So Lower Murray Water own the adjoining title. We know they've been doing some strategic work as to where their water treatment plant would go. And whether it's this site or another site in town, they still have registered concerns. So.
Councillor Inglefield?
Just one quick question about 173s. What's the... It's a philosophical question, I suppose. What's the rationale for a council of the day tying the hands of a council in the future, which is effectively what a 173 does?
Yeah, so in this case, it's looking at compliance with the planning scheme and reducing risk. Issuing a permit to create lots and assuming by creating lots you're getting development rights. It is actually flagging that development rights are limited by using the Section 173 agreement.
Yep.
But Section 173 agreements are used in a variety of ways.
Yep.
I'm really just talking to the way this one was used.
Yep. So Is it correct to say that, or I understand that the use of a 173 agreement is you need to be careful about you need to consider the use of a 173 agreement if there are other provisions within the planning scheme that would already provide adequate protections.
Yeah, I think that sort of case law is being developed, but it doesn't prohibit council from using it to limit development that the planning scheme may already allow.
Okay. Do I have a motion, councillors? Somebody's got to have a motion for me, please. We need to make a decision. Councillor Thornton.
I'd like to move an amended motion that accepts the end to the section 173.
Righto. So have we got that? Option two. So option two becomes the motion. You right with that tomorrow? You will be? Yep. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded Councillor Englefield. Councillor Thornton, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, this issue came to the December meeting of council, and as discussed at that time, was the first time this council looked at this application. All agreed it was an unusual situation to be removing the section 173, but it had the full in principle support from this council, and I see no reason to change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Englefield, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, it seems to me that in this particular instance, and as they say, we need to judge applications on their own merits, that the principal concern is the potential for a housing development sometime in the future. There are three other triggers where council has control over whether there is a housing development on this property in the future, regardless of the section, or if it did not still have a 173 attached to it. And that's the ones that we've just mentioned before. The land subject to inundation requires a planning permit to build a house. An environmentally sensitive overlay would require a planning permit, and it's in the farming zone and less than 20 hectares. So it would require a permit because it doesn't have an as-of right for a permit. So there are at least three triggers that would require the consent of council for any construction of a dwelling to take place on this particular lot. So there's some significant hurdles already in place. I would though say I would have preferred to see this to have been a much cleaner process. I certainly do recognise that it hasn't, the original planning permit hasn't been fully executed yet. I would have probably preferred to have seen at least that take place, but it is what it is. I have a position where I think these sorts of things should be put through. I would have approved this personally without a 173 in the first instance, because then it has other triggers anyway if people are concerned about houses. That's a hurdle that the owner, either current or any future owner, will have to jump, and I think it's up to future council to make that decision.
Thank you, Councillor Englefield. Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Jennings.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Now, I just support what my two fellow councillors have said. We did debate this back in December, and we were unanimous that given that it is not an application for a planning permit per se, it's just to remove the 173, that we were unanimous in our support of that, and I don't see any reason to change either. There's more than adequate controls if there was to be an application come before us. And I'm just concerned that other parties in some of these applications that we're getting are just carte blanche, knocking them back, objecting to them for their own interests. So I would be supportive of removing.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Any other speakers to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We will take a 5-minute adjournment, if we could... Oh, hang on, sorry, before we do, could somebody bring councillor Rogers in before we do that? Sorry. Thank you. Councillor Rogers re-entered the room at 3:59 p.m. For your information, Councillor Rogers, the motion was put that council approves ending the 173 agreement, and that motion was approved, was voted in favour of by councillors. With that, we will take a 5-minute adjournment. If you could, we'll suspend the live stream. We'll be back in 5 minutes to resume the meeting at section 3. Thank you, and welcome back to continuation of the meeting. We will move into agenda item 3.1, the planning quarterly report for January to March 2026. Ms Granger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to present our quarterly report for statutory planning from January to March 2026. These figures are accurate to the 9th of April 2026. In this quarter, we received 39 planning permit applications. We issued 20 permits. We had no refusals and no applications withdrawn. Pleasingly, 85% of all our applications were processed within the 60-day statutory timeframes. 100% of our VicSmart, which are our simple applications that have a 10-day turnaround, were issued within that 10 days. And the median processing for our applications is 58 days for a normal application and 8.5 days for VicSmart. And the development costs or the development associated with the permits we issued, it has an estimated value of $5 million. Of the applications that we issued permits for, 12 we gave notice to the community, and most of those didn't attract any objections. 10 required further information, so we still need to do work with our applicants to improve the quality of applications, which then will allow us to issue permits in a more timely way. From a subdivision point of view, we issued 7 statement of compliance, which means that we created 22 new lots across the municipality. In our current applications, we're heading back to our standard application load of between 50 and 60, so we've got 49 on track at the moment. 21 of those are on track and 21 are waiting further information. Applications of note, we have a number, 6 applications in from the Mallee Catchment Management Authority for levy bank works. We've got an extension to an existing medical centre and an extension of time received for a worker accommodation permit that we'd issued. The back of the report leads you through amendments to the planning scheme that the state government have been preparing. Largely they are fairly procedural and corrections amendments, other than one that looks at removing provisions around gaming machines. But again, most of the state government work lately has been trying to facilitate housing applications. So I think this is a great result for council and the community, that we're seeing continued investment, and across council there's a lot of departments, including engineering, economic development, that have input to allow us to continue to issue planning permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Granger. Councillor Broad, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question regarding the complex permit applications, and in terms of if they're on track, if they're waiting on information, and what entails a complex planning application.
So we report this data to the Victorian government, and when we're reporting the data, we've actually got to, when we've first received an application, so before it even gets to a planner, we've got to decide whether it's complex, simple, or moderate effort. We take an approach that we assign complex as anything we think needs further information, or applications that are going to take us more than 7 days to process. So it's meeting a formula that every council has to tick the box. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be an extremely complex application from a community point of view.
Councillor Thornton?
Thank you for the report. Regarding the levy bank work from Mallee CMA, that's quite different, and I think we had a report from the Mallee CMA regarding these projects to the previous projects which are happening through the Victorian Floodplain Restoration Project, which didn't come through the local government planning scheme, I understand. Obviously there'll be cultural heritage referrals with those.
Yeah. So
can you explain how that's going to work?
Yeah, so at this stage we've got the planning permit applications in, they're ready to issue, but we can't issue them because cultural heritage management plans haven't been approved as yet. So that may well throw out our timing figures for our next quarterly report to you. But the way the cultural heritage legislation is set up is that a planning permit can't be issued until such time as a cultural heritage management plan, if required, is approved.
And just a query on how much vegetation removal will happen as with those projects and those levee banks that are being constructed.
Yeah, I'd need to take that on notice. I haven't reviewed each of those applications separately.
No worries. Look forward to that.
Question from me, Ms Granger. Do we have any, within the report period or now, do we have any current planning applications for private developments, not government-funded ones, for unit townhouse complexes of, say, 4, 5, 6 dwellings? Are we seeing, in our municipality, are we seeing those types of applications come through or not?
We're not seeing as many of those applications as what we were 12 or 18 months ago. Again, I'd need to go back through the figures, but we definitely have seen a slowdown in the number of multi-unit developments occurring.
So do we have any at the moment?
I'd need to take that on notice. I haven't checked that table.
Yep, okay. No worries, thank you. Councillor Thornton.
Apologies, just thought of another question. So regarding the Mallee CMA applications, they will not be advertised publicly?
I've got a feeling they have been advertised, but again, I need to take that on notice. I can provide you an update on that.
Thank you, much appreciated.
If there are no further questions, could I have a motion, please? Councillor Jennings. As
For the recommendation, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Seconder for the motion. Councillor Thornton. Councillor Jennings, wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. After our lengthy sessions before on other matters, it's nice to receive a positive report, and I think that this report that highlights that there's been something in the order of $5 million worth of approvals in the last reporting period of 3 months is a very positive thing. The timeframes are good. There hasn't been any withdrawals. I think all of the boxes have been ticked, so credit where credit's due. This has been a very well-received report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Thornton, do you wish to speak to the
Nothing
motion?
to add.
Any other speakers to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 3.2, major projects progress update, again for the same period, January to March 26. Ms Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I'm really pleased to present the major projects progress update for the quarter ending March 26, so following your lead. Some key highlights include the completion of multiple civil and infrastructure projects, which includes the 10 Steps renewal and associated retaining wall works, which we have received a lot of positive feedback, so it's been a very well received project by our community. The Tintinda Road rehabilitation and the design of the Maloo Street boat mooring platform. Significant advancement of some major projects being namely the Robinvale Workers Accommodation with fit out nearing completion, and the Quambatook Road construction project. Stage 1 has been completed, and I've also had a lot of positive feedback in regards to that in terms of how that's being received by our community, and stage 2 is underway with that one. We've also seen progression on a few other projects. You've got to remember this is to the end of March, so we had awarded the Karini reconstruction project, but obviously everyone's well aware that that work has proceeded. The Wurrunan South footpath projects, again, the contract was awarded in the last quarter, but works are well underway now, and the Naya barbecue shelter. Within your papers, councillors, you can see a large list of completed projects for the quarter. And these have all been completed. The total value of these works is approximately $19 million. These projects form part of Council's broader capital works program with expenditure distributed across multiple financial years depending on the project. So a lot of work has happened and continues to happen across the Shire. So Council, it's recommended that you note the progress that is made on the projects as reported. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Johnston. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Jennings and Councillor Rogers.
Just a clarification there, Leah. You mentioned that those projects were completed in the quarter. I think it's actually the financial year.
Which projects are you referring to?
Just your last comment there, that there's a long list of projects completed in the quarter, just for
Sorry, in the year. Yes,
clarification for anyone listening online.
Yes,
There's a substantial list there, but it has been in the financial year.
that's correct.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Jennings. Councillor Rogers?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is regarding the Pioneer Settlement footbridge and the Maloo Street mooring platform. Firstly, I'd like to commend the outcome of all the other great things it achieved, but I do have disappointment with those two projects, because I thought that they'd be excavators and shovels down there working in January, February. Might have been a bit unrealistic view, but I understand and know that we have got a limited window of opportunity to get those projects done. We've got a low river getting lower at the moment, and a window and opportunity before our summer season approaches, where we'll be having recreation and boats and everyone down there enjoying the park. And my worst nightmare was that we'd have our park half shut off with fences and excavators working there and restrict access to our park and also to the Little Murray River. So the question is, have we really emphasised to the authorities that are holding up? I know our staff are working hard to try and get it going quicker, and I commend you for that, but have we really nailed it home to the authorities that are holding us that we are very limited at time, and it is a major project, and our whole municipality and all the people enjoy those facilities if we can get them going for summer? Have we really, or can we do any more? Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So I'll start with the Pental Island Bridge project first. So the contractor has been appointed for that project. The process for the landowner consent did commence in June of last year. So it has been very onerous, and it has been a bit disappointing in terms of that process to date. Council did receive, as I advised councillors, I think it was last week or the week before, a further RFI or a request for information. That request is quite detailed, wanting a lot more information on native vegetation removal reports. They wanted updated arborist reports, construction footprint offsets, biodiversity impacts and things of that nature. Our consultant has been working very closely with DECA to understand specifically what the concerns are, so that our response addresses all of those issues, so there's no further delays or additional requests for information. We are hoping to have a reply back to DECA in the middle of June. I will also emphasise that all the materials for that particular project has already been fabricated. So we're still hoping for a commencement, let's say, in the August. We are also working quite closely with the contractor on that. The build is estimated to be in the period of 4 to 4.5 months. So we're still on target for a completion in, prior to your Christmas period, I think, which is what you're alluding to.
Yes.
And I will make the added comment that the river won't be closed. It will only be during periods of where there's heavy machinery that it might be for a few hours at a time on a, might be for 4, 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
So it's not for that duration of 4 months that the river will be closed or anything of that nature. So I don't want to alarm any of the
That's
community
reassuring,
in
yeah.
regards to that. I think what's critical is that we have to work with our key other government agencies and make sure that that communication is really good, so that we understand their expectations as well.
So, sorry, before we move to the next one, just to confirm, landowner consent comes from DECA?
That one, yep.
Yep, and
That's right.
DECA is obviously a state government entity.
That is correct.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. So in regards to the mooring platform project, again, the contractor has already been appointed for that particular project. The only outstanding item is for our development application, which is currently with the Murray River Council. We have been advised it is on public exhibition. It went out on the 4th of May and it closes on the 3rd of June. So we would hope to receive that feedback from the Murray River Council hopefully mid to late June. But I guess, the proviso on that will be, do they receive a large number of submissions? They need the time to review those submissions and then provide advice back to council. Fabrication is to commence for that particular project. and the contractor has advised that their timeframe on site would be in the order of around, 3 to 5 weeks of that nature. And certainly that it will not result in any closure of the river. But again, it's really important. We're also a government authority, and sometimes we have our processes that are in place, so we need to respect the processes of the other agencies, but certainly also ensure that they understand that, the importance of these projects for our community. So it's working in partnership with those agencies so that we can make sure these do get delivered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the project management report? If not, could I have a motion? Moved Councillor Rogers, seconded Councillor Broad. Thank you. You wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Rogers?
No, just as per the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Broad, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Only to say well done. This is a great list of projects. It's tangible outcomes for our community. It's great to see the art gallery, tourism and cultural hub on that list, as well as the 10 steps and retaining wall finally get to the completed stage. So well done to that department and everyone involved.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? If not, put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Section 4 of the agenda, 4.1, the sign and seal. Mr CEO.
As per procedure, Mayor, if there are any errors or omissions or anything that is required, please let me know, but this is a procedural step where councillors ratify the using of the seal.
Any questions, councillors? If not, could I have a motion? Moved Councillor Englefield, seconded Councillor Rogers.
As per recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you. Wish to speak?
Nope.
Anything to say?
As per recommendation.
Any other councillors wish to speak? All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. 4.2, councillor briefings, record of attendance and agenda items. Are there any corrections, omissions, errors on there? If there's none to be brought to attention, could I have a motion, please? Move Councillor Jennings as per recommendation. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Englefield. Anything you wish to say, Councillor Jennings? No. Councillor Englefield. Put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Moving on, we have no notices of motion. Any foreshadowed items, councillors? No foreshadowed items. We have no urgent items in the agenda, so we'll move to section 8 to consider and order on councillor reports. And I'll start with you, Councillor Broad, and we'll go around the room this way.
Great. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Only a few for me. I had the privilege of representing council at the Anzac Day March along with the Mayor. That was phenomenal, well run, one of my favourite days of the year, external to being on council. Such an important time. Other events included mainly Swan Link events. That was the North Traders Twilight Market, which was an absolute success. BizNet After Dark was great for anyone that went. I'm sure they got a lot out of it. Feedback from that was incredibly positive. And then a board meeting with Swan Link again last night. So Swan Link's doing a lot in the community and I'm pretty happy to be with them. All good.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Broad. Councillor Englefield.
Yeah, not a real lot other than, attended the Anzac Day ceremonies in Robinvale and went to Reba meeting the other night. Robinvale's version of Swan Link, or Robinvale Euston's version of Swan Link. And they're going really well, actually. They've got quite an active committee happening there. But the really interesting thing that came out of that recent meeting is that the Balranald Council is able to applied for some funding from I believe it's a state government fund in reflection of the impact of water buybacks, and it's restricted only to those LGAs that are afflicted by water buybacks, and they've put in for a project to the value of $10 million, and they're pretty excited about that. So I'd like to think that maybe our state government could get excited about water buybacks and maybe sling some extra funding to those LGAs that are only affected by water buybacks. But I'm not holding my breath.
That's the Sustaining Communities Fund, which hasn't yet been agreed to by the Victorian State Government, correct? Thank you, Councillor Inglefield. Councillor Rogers.
Probably the most important meeting I went to was the Murray-Darling Basin Commission review down here in the Pioneer Settlement. It was good to speak with all those senior people from Canberra and give our concerns to them. Hopefully we'll achieve something back from it, and yeah, there'll be less water buybacks out of our municipality and more water. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Councillor Jennings.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I also attended the Murray-Darling Basin meeting down at the Hub the day after our last meeting, and I see they thank us for our input, and they'll take it on board, which will be good. Had the pleasure of morning with Councillor Thornton at the Chat with the Councillor, so we spent a pleasant morning talking to each other, and on a wet, miserable morning down at Riverside Park. Did get the opportunity to talk to a previous mayor who was interested in what we were up to, and I know that Councillor Thornton spoke to a couple of the organisers from down there, and she'll speak to one of the other ones that happened on that day as well, I'm sure. So still a worthwhile event, even though it was, and I think the only reason they stayed on was because there was a paddler or something coming through, but inclement weather and lack of people, and anyway, we solved the problems of the world ourselves, so you've got that going for you. Also had a look at either end of the Swan Hill North Friday night event that they had, and there was cars for as far as you could see all around the area, and it really was humming, so well done to Swan Hill Inc. for getting that off the ground, and I'm sure that will continue as a regular event, and really good for that outlying area to be getting the support from the body. Not that they knew it, but I represented Swan Hill at the Anzac Day March at Echuca, having a couple of days over there, and had a look at their Anzac Day ceremony, and had the opportunity to have a look around the river there and get some ideas of some things that we may be able to do into the future. So always nice to compare notes with your neighbouring municipalities.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Thornton.
Thank you. I've been back at it after a 3-week break before the last council meeting, and enjoyed, as Councillor Jennings has noted, our coffee with the councillor at the Swan Hill Market. It was actually an opportunity to discuss with a few different traders who were also at the market regarding the special rate, which was good. I was unfortunately an apology for the Art Gallery Advisory Committee meeting, but have represented and given a council report to Sustainable Living in the Mallee, and attended the Neighbourhood House celebration last week, as well as discussing or having an update on the briefing from Golden Murray Water to Council, because I was unfortunately unavailable for that one. Regarding the Murray-Darling Basin engagements, I've also appreciated the time that we've spent on that over the last month, but I have also it has been an opportunity to be hyper aware and also fielding a number of calls from the Naya community regarding the Victorian engineering projects or floodplain restoration projects, which are happening at the moment, particularly at Naya and Vinifera. I have not represented particularly well some of those people, because I had tried to bring it to urgent business, but not understanding the processes haven't done that. So I look forward to talking with my fellow councillors about that when the opportunity arises. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. With myself, again, just alongside Councillor Broad, it was a pleasure and a real honour to be able to march in the Anzac Day March in Swan Hill, and congratulate the RSL Swan Hill sub-branch on that event that they put on. Dawn service was again well attended, and the morning service was also well attended. Great to see the involvement of all the schools and various other community groups in that event. It's a very solemn day. It's always a piece of music that brings a tear to my eye, but congratulations on all those that rocked up and continued commemorate the great sacrifice that many made for this nation. I've also had a number of meetings with various MPs regarding our state election advocacy. Met with federal member Ann Webster in regard to the fuel crisis and cost escalations that council are experiencing, along with the CEO. Opened the 60th May Carnival for the Swan Hill Bowls Club, a club that is run solely by volunteers, but 60 years of the May Carnival. Pleased to report that I laid the opening bowl and it landed very close to the kitty. So that was, my parents were very keen to recruit me, but we might hold that off for a few more years just yet. And exciting news, I was briefed by the principal of the Australian Christian College Swan Hill campus on their plans to expand to providing a secondary offering in 2027, and they have a planning application in with council at the moment in regards to that expansion. So that's pretty exciting for the Swan Hill region to be able to offer more variety and more opportunities for secondary education in our region. So, actually one I missed, sorry, I represented council along with a couple of officers at the Victorian Museum and Galleries Awards in Melbourne, where our art gallery was nominated for an award, which unfortunately we didn't win, but it was an interesting event to go to and to represent us at. So that's it for me for the month as well. Thank you, councillors, for all of your participation. Some of you have filled in for me at times as well, which I appreciate, but participation in various community groups, community events, and giving the community plenty of opportunity to consult and to have their feelings known and their thoughts known. So very good. With that, that is the conclusion of the ordinary agenda for today. So thank you to the public and in the gallery and on the live stream for your attendance today. It's been a bit longer than what we've been accustomed to, councillors and officers. We will be moving into camera to consider one matter. When we come out of camera, the only business will be to close the meeting. So I will thank you for your attendance today and look forward to for your participation in making comments, giving feedback on the draft budget that has been approved today, and we'll go out for community input. And again, just encourage the community to get involved in that process. This is your another chance for you to have a say in that process. But with that, I'll ask for a motion to move into camera. Move Councillor Rogers, seconded Councillor Englefield. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. All items of business have been concluded for the May scheduled meeting of Swan Hill Rural City Council. I'll declare the meeting closed at 5:02 p.m.